Welcome to Heavily Meditated, a podcast celebrating human potential. Meditations, interviews, tools, trainings, and more designed to take you higher. Let's raise the collective consciousness together. Hi, I'm Scott Roberts, and I'd love to welcome you to the Heavily Meditated podcast. You're listening to part one of our Creating a Greater Vision for Your Life series. And in this episode, we are going to be focusing on how belief creates your vision. So I love this part, and this is what gets me super excited to talk about, because this is where every bit of the success that Emily and I have comes from. So for those of you that might not know a little bit about the backstory, about what brings Emily and I to the point where we are now, being able to travel the world to bucket list locations and coach clients from our laptops wherever we go, it basically comes down to three really pivotal moments in our lives. The first of which came in January of 2006 when I had my breakdown to breakthrough moment. So Emily and I had built a really fantastic life. We had a gorgeous home that we had custom built. We had, a lot of great things in our life. We had great friends. Emily and I loved, being able to travel back then, doing little trips up to the mountains to go mountain biking. We both had great bikes that we loved, and we had, a nice car. So we'd built, a really great life for ourselves. And there were a lot of things for us to be grateful for and a lot of things that we really loved. But how we got there was kind of out of alignment with my soul, because even though Emily's work was really fulfilling and she was doing something that she was very passionate about, she had actually, had been working for quite some time in marketing, brand development, and graphic design as well, and, had really put a really great stamp on her future and had been doing some amazing things with her work. So she was, happy, she was able to really excel in her positions. And I was making good money in my work, but I wasn't doing what I was really passionate about. I was working in sales and kind of getting more and more high pressure as time went on, and, selling things that I didn't really believe in, but just doing it as a way to make money, believing that was what the American dream was. As long as you, were working hard, you were making money, it didn't really matter whether you liked your job or not. But as time wore on, things got worse and worse for me, and I, was able to use yoga as a way to cope with all the, the stress of working in an environment that was unhappy and unhealthy. But over time, when you don't address the core beliefs and you don't address the core programming that's, led you to a place of unhappiness, that's when it can rear its ugly head, and that's what happened with me. It all came to basically came to a head, and was at the point where I was ready to take my life. And from that moment, that's when Emily and I really dug deep into human consciousness, understanding the human brain and how it works, and just knowing that this was a life or death situation. We weren't going to be available any longer for suffering and living life in misery. So that's when we really began doing the work and doing the research to find out exactly what was going on and how we were going to get free from it. So fast forward a year down the road, I was still in the job that had led me to where I was at that point. I was a lot better, but I still hadn't broken free from the past, and I still hadn't learned everything that I needed to in order to be able to create a new life for myself. But that's when we first stumbled upon the idea of creating a vision map, or what a lot of people call a vision board, but we call it more of a map. And we did so on the way up to Aspen in Colorado for President's Day weekend. We were going to go up there and do some skiing and get away and just have a little, mini vacation. And while we were going up there, we started doing what we, call the vision mapping and coming up with our dream life. So while I was driving, Emily was asking me questions and taking notes, and she was asking me, if you could do anything with your life, if you could wake up in the morning and do whatever you want every day. You didn't have to worry about money. You didn't have to worry about anything. You could just do what really made you happy, and you could figure out how you could actually contribute to the world in your best way. What would it be? And we started, coming up with this vision of what our dream life would be. For me, it involved, waking up early, but not to an alarm, but instead to just my natural, inner clock that would go off early because I was rested, I was healthy, I was happy and ready to take on the day. And it involved, being able to wake up, meditate, do yoga, be able to teach yoga, be able to, eat amazing healthy food, and be able to travel when I wanted to, be able to see gorgeous locations all over the world, and be able to be with people that inspired me and uplifted me. And so this whole weekend, and while we're driving up there, we came up with this vision map for what we wanted our future to look like. And that's what we spent the whole weekend doing. Well, then after another few years, we had been working towards being able to travel to really gorgeous locations. And one of the first places that we went to that was really, really amazing for us to experience was Tulum, Mexico. And that was back in 2009. And that's when I truly began to believe and see just how powerful creating a vision map for your life and then taking steps towards living it could actually be. Because once I walked into this amazing view in this resort that we booked in Tulum, I looked out and I saw one of the most beautiful iridescent waters and just white sand beaches I have ever seen in my life. And it was our first experience going to a truly 5-star resort. And while I was there, I was able to teach yoga. I was able to wake up on my own natural clock early, get to watch sunrises, meditate, practice and teach yoga. I was eating amazing healthy food. I could have, any combination of fruits and vegetables that I wanted, fresh fruits and vegetables, and was living the exact life that we had created a vision map of those years before. And I think that's when the belief really sets in when you do this work, is when you're able to actually see that everything that you've been working for and everything that you've been dreaming of is actually starting to come to fruition. Like you're actually starting to see it happen. And so that's where we've been creating from ever since then, is that once we had that first taste of walking out and looking at the Caribbean Sea like that for the first time, and being in a place that we had only ever dreamed of, and just realizing that the reason we were there was because we had envisioned it and we had created it and we were now living it, that's when we truly started to create. That's when we truly started to push ourselves to do something way beyond what we had ever thought, because now we could see just how powerful the exercise of creating a vision for your life is and how it actually works. And, along the way, I had smaller signs that gave me hope and the strength to keep pushing. So you'd see little results here and there. You're getting closer and closer to your goal, and that's what helps you to keep pushing forward when things get a little tough. But belief can actually be cultivated before you get any of those signs. So in other words, it's a little easier to realize that what you're doing is actually working when you can see those signs, when you can see the physical evidence in the world that everything that you're dreaming up is actually coming to fruition. But it can be a little more challenging sometimes when you have more subconscious programming that holds you back and makes you doubt what you can't see in your physical world yet. But the steps to being able to have that belief before you get the external signs is first to realize that the universe can deliver whatever you can imagine. There are no limits. So the size of the dream or the difficulty of achieving a dream is a limit that you place on it, not the universe. The universe can deliver anything that you want, anything you could possibly imagine is already there and waiting for you in the universe, and it can create anything with no limits. Now, the second step is to realize that you wouldn't have the dream and the desire if it wasn't already possible. Everything that you see now in the world, so the buildings, the houses, the cars, computers, the movies you watch, the shows you watch, they all started as a dream, a vision, a desire for someone else, and they then became a reality. That individual or those group of individuals had a dream for something. They created a vision of it in their mind. They took action. They had desire inside of them that made them really push forward when they were challenged, and then they made it a reality. Everything you see in the world. And now the next step for you, when you're still trying to cultivate that belief before you get the external physical signs, is to know that just because you can't see it or understand it doesn't mean that the power of the universe to deliver isn't real. So a case in point, you obviously can use Wi-Fi on your computer. You have electricity in your home or wherever you go. You don't have to see it to believe it. You just experience it. It's there. The same thing goes for gravity. You don't see gravity, but you believe it because you experience it. Well, just because you can't see your future reality in the physical world doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So once you believe anything is possible, that's when the fun starts. That's when you can begin creating life that you want. So why is it that we hold ourselves back and find it so hard to believe? Well, the answer is simple. It's fear. And fear is what's programmed into us, into our subconscious mind, because as you experience things in the world, you have setbacks, you have failures, you learn to fear the unknown. So that's what we're going to be talking about next week on our Heavily Meditated podcast. So I want you to make sure to tune in next week and learn how fear is holding you back from creating the life you want and ultimately having the belief in that which is unseen at this moment. All right, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and share it with the people you love most. Thank you so much for your presence today, and thank you so much for listening. And I will talk to you on the next episode of the Heavily Meditated podcast.